All right, y'all, what's going on? Welcome back to another Just Absolutely Boxing podcast. It's episode 107. I'm Combo Breaker 99.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Boxing P.
And we've been out again for a little bit. Had to take some little bit of time off. We had things going on. Like I told you, P, I've been trying to enjoy some of this weather, some of these free weekends I've been getting lately, man. Everything's been
That's
kind of looking lovely. How about for you, man? What's going on?
like you say, yeah, we had to step away. We definitely got personal lives and other goals we trying to achieve outside of the boxing world and also inside the boxing world. So it's just the game don't stop. You know what I mean? If you don't hear from me that or us, that definitely don't mean that we not indulging in the sport some type of way. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Same here, man. Like past couple months, we've been kind of overloaded with, fights and fight news. So a lot of things been talked about in the game. So we still been keeping up with things. But this past weekend we didn't really have any boxing matches, but we did get a chance to check out UFC 239. And yeah, man, like you was telling me off the mic, man, the card was lit. And I think this is one of them cards that really had you kind of going too, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Being a former huge, UFC fan, and like over the years, kind of just dying away, except for, the big fights. It definitely felt good to see, watch a card and get that all that emotion. You know what I'm saying? That card gave me, to be honest. It was a lot going on. It was, not necessarily upsets, but it was some big defeats. It was some vicious knockouts, but most of all, it was a super high level, high technical card. Everybody came in there with a really solid and effective game plan and applied it, and we just got to see the results of those different strategies and a different part of fighting. It's not just going in there throwing punches. And these guys are following the plan. They have studied and done homework, and when they get into the ring, it's time to execute. That game plan that they came up with for that particular opponent.
Yeah, that was one of the things I really appreciated. Like I said, with this card myself, is just like, I know a lot of people when they watch UFC, they come to see, blood, they come to see punches thrown and knockouts, but just seeing everybody fight like a very calculated, disciplined plan, that always makes me appreciate the sport even more. Like it's not just a brute sport. Also, it's also a sport where you got to be on your game. You got to know angles. You got to know range. For me, just like going back and looking at the Amanda Nunes and Holly Holm fight, Holly Holm, like I said, former boxing champion, trying to recapture that UFC championship, but it just didn't go away, man. Because Amanda Nunes right now, I feel like she is like one of the greatest women of all time for all combat sports. Because I really felt like throughout the years she really acquired like so much skill and so much confidence in herself that it almost looks like it's easy for her to do. It's not easy, but the way she was able to just go in there and kind of set up a game plan and kind of feel out her opponent in Holly and kind of reverse what Holly's used to doing, that was just kind of like a beautiful thing. You know what I mean? Like, I was going for Holly in this fight, but, like I said, both fighters, I ain't got nothing against. I like them both, but I just felt like seeing what Amanda Nunes was able to do to Holly, what Holly did to Ronda Rousey, that was just kind of like, it was a spectacular knockout for me, man.
Yeah, I mean, and like to add on to that, and like you say, well, like I was saying, just the technical side of the game. I mean, for Amanda to go in there with the mindset of I'm going to do what Holly does to people, and to be able to execute that on somebody like Holly, who is high level, like I say, MMA champion, UFC champion, kickboxing champion, boxing champion, to be able to do that, that's technical, man. That's technique. That's not just running in there, throwing a kick and hoping it land. You know what I mean? So, like I say, once again, I am a huge fight fan, but I do like, the technical side of it, and because a guy who's considered a knockout artist, if he's knocked out everybody he's faced, and he faces a guy he couldn't knock out, I have to respect the guy that he didn't knock out, even though he might have lost the fight, because his defense allowed that to happen. His technique allowed him not to get knocked out. And you know what I'm saying? The guy who is known to bust up guys, and you fight him and he don't bust you up, I gotta, that's worth a couple of points too, because that was technique. You avoiding punches, slipping, you sliding, whatever you were doing, but that's worth something too, because that's a part of the game too. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's definitely worth something, because it's like you was able to do what nobody else could, and that in itself, is tough, because it's almost like a checklist in the fight game, like a mental checklist that just goes by so fast in your mind. Like, you got to be able to take away certain guys' strengths. You got to be able to protect yourself. You got to know whenever to make these calculated moves so you don't get knocked out. So it's like all just going through your head all at once simultaneously, and you got to be able to kind of orchestrate in your mind, like, this is what I'm going to try to do. But like you say, at the end of the day, if you can make it through the fight without getting knocked out, that is impressive against a knockout monster.
That's an accomplishment too. You know what I'm saying? So when you start talking about technique and technical fighters and real technical game plans, it's interesting. It's just how you bring it to the table, man. Because some people never think about it like that. You know what I'm saying? They never think that, just because he lost the fight, he just survived. But surviving took skill. You know what I'm saying?
Hell yeah.
You know what I mean? So, just kind of bringing that stuff to light, that it is a game plan. It's like football. You running plays and all this. This is a fighter has a game plan too. It's not just I always say that, and it's not just throwing punches, because a lot of people think that's what it is, and that's what attracts a lot of casual fans. Just thinking it's just some violence. What I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I remember like my first time seeing boxing when I was like in the first grade of kindergarten, and I was like turning it on and watching with my dad. The first time I saw it, I was expecting to see that, two dudes like on a movie just going at it, whooping ass. But I saw dudes tying each other up. I was like, man, what's going on? I was like, why ain't he hitting him? You know what I mean? But now I know the science behind tying somebody up, or, pressing them against the ropes. Now it all kind of makes sense to me, and I find it more exciting now because I understand why they do it.
Exactly. And that's like my point, at, what I'm saying, just bringing some stuff to light that some people may not have, perceived that way. And it ain't a bad thing. It's just something I like bringing to the light. We like bringing to the table. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's good to do that, because like you say, bringing it up, it'll definitely like open your mind to it, and then that'll tell you if you really do appreciate it or not.
Mm-hmm.
But
absolutely.
But yeah, man.
Real quick on that, and before we hop out this card, this UFC 239, and I just wanted to say, because I'm curious to, like, is there anybody else in the world like that? But some people just feel like the combat sports too brutal, too violent. Some people don't care for them, man. You know what I'm saying? They think it's just a street fight. But me even being a diehard fan, it is still some aspects of the game that can turn my stomach. You know what I'm saying? Even though I love it, you know what I mean? And just the 239, the Jorge Masvidal versus Ben Askren, the flying knee. This, everybody in the world knows about this flying knee now. I thought it when I seen it, and then I heard, like, people in the UFC, former champions, just well-versed people in the sport, reiterated, saying that it was like the worst knockout that they had ever seen, and it kind of hit me like that too. My stomach kind of turned watching that. I didn't know if Ben was good or not. But I just want people to know that, yeah, even being a fan of the sport, it's some things you see in the sport that's really, really dramatic. And that particular fight, it was a dramatic ending, but in the same token, it was still all technical. You know, the fact that Jorge could perfectly time that and land that on a guy who was undefeated, a champion in two other organizations, you know, wasn't. Ben called him. I mean, Jorge called Ben a bum. I don't think Ben was a bum. It still was
No.
impressive for, you know, Jorge to be able to pull that off. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up, though, Ant, because it is some things in the fight game that, you know, can be hard to watch. I mean, Anderson Silva, you know, breaking his leg, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that was pretty tough to watch too. But same in boxing, it's been, you know, boxing KOs that kind of done me the same way. The one that really brings to mind, I don't know why it turned my stomach like that, but it was when Shane Mosley knocked out Fernando Vargas. It was just the viciousness of the punch, and he just, I don't know what it was, but
Not
it happens, and I just wanted to
not
bring that up.
the first fight, the second one.
The second one, yeah.
Oh yeah,
The
yeah,
second,
yeah, yeah. The second one, he laid him out that left hook, and oh
yeah,
yeah,
oh
yeah,
my God, it
yeah.
was just, yeah, man, it was another one of those times. But yeah, so as much as I love it, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it still does things to me too, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But
I guess it do for me too. Sometime, like for me, actually, the Ben Askren knockout, it didn't really do that to me. I think for me, it was that Holly knockout whenever Nunes, you know, landed the head kick. I think it was the thing that kind of, I won't say really turned my stomach, but just kind of had me feel a little bit sad for was like I was telling you off the mic, whenever she kind of like did that little hesitant move, like she didn't know what to do for a second, and then she got caught with that shot, and then just kind of seeing somebody that you see train hard and, you know, come in strong and come in as this, you know, athletic woman, and then after that you just see her down the way she was. That kind of puts a knot in your stomach, because like I said, after
yeah,
it landed, you know, she just kind of
absolutely.
like, you know, laying there. And then after that, Nunes was about to go in for the kill, but the referee stopped it, which to me, I was glad about that, because like I said, the thing that turned my stomach also was when Jorge tried to land them other shots. So I was like, that's what kind of turned my stomach on that knockout when I go back and look, because I was just looking at it now, as a matter of fact, because I just don't get that. Like, you know, the dude is out, but you trying to go in for those extra shots. That's one of the things that kind of still gets me with, you know, MMA fights. You know, I know that you in that killer mode, but you got to know whenever when you won and you already got your, when you know, when you already checkmated somebody. That's my thing.
Yeah, it's crazy out there, bro. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
yeah,
But yeah, for sure, man. And on you know, the Holly Holmes thing real quick too, and absolutely, like if you see somebody you a fan of to go out like that, it's definitely a whole nother emotional roller coaster for you. You know what I mean? And I got a lot of respect for Holly. It was hard to watch her kind of go out like that, you know. But on the flip side, Ben Askren, like I say, I wasn't a big fan. It was more or less, you know, we don't want to see nobody die in the sport. And at that particular moment, I didn't know if his career was over or not. You know what I mean? Because that was something that we've seen flying knees before, but none like that. And then that you actually could hear the impact of the knee hitting. You know what I'm saying? It was like
yeah,
a click. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. On that note, that's the thing. You know, we all, you know, want to be entertained by a fight, but we don't want to see nobody like permanently damaged or nothing. You know, I wasn't a fan of Ben Askren, and I wasn't not a fan of him. I just, you know, I just was curious to see how he would perform in the UFC like everybody else. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. Definitely,
But
especially on this level. You know what I mean? Like, and like you said, it don't make him a bum. Like Jorge said to me, it just makes you say that there was just that one thing that wasn't on your checklist to protect yourself at all times, you know, or expect the unexpected. Because as soon as the bell ring, the fight started. You know, because I seen boxing matches where the bell rings, as soon as you get to the center of the ring, dudes swing wild, and you got to be on your guard to duck. You know what I mean?
yeah, you don't know what's going to happen, and I mean, and I feel Ben, you know, like I say, another thing, you know, I gotta say big shout out to him for facing the music. Monday he was on Ariel Hawani's show. I forget what it's called, but Ariel Hawani, I mean, he asked him all the questions, man. I mean, he's a trip, Ariel Hawani. I mean,
Oh,
I
he
gotta
don't pull no
respect him.
punches, yeah.
Yeah, but the way he acts it is in such a way that it's hard to get offended by it. You know what I'm saying? He even told Ben Askren, he said, yeah, man, well, you thought that you were going to get the 3-piece in the soda, but instead you got the whole MGM Grand Buffet to the face. I was like, no, he did. Yes, he said that to Ben. Ben said, well, yeah, I guess that's what it took to stop me. You know what I mean? But shout out to Ben Askren on that note for having the heart to face the music on Monday and taking the loss like a champ, man. Like I say, and people still have to keep in mind that a loss in the fight game is. I understand why it's so psychologically impactful, because it's like, I mean, some of them it's a matter of thousands of dollars, a lot of zeros on their check, but just for the most part, you kind of got to start from the bottom again. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
and,
hell yeah, because it's like...
I kind of felt for Ben Askren. I felt for him on that note because he was, one of his dreams was to be, I guess, a champion in all the organizations he was in. He said he was real close to getting that title shot and possibly accomplishing that. And now the way he got knocked out and just everything is going to be, he got some work to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely psychologically, it can be breaking because, yeah, you spend all that training camp preparing for everything just to see it gone in like 5 seconds. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
Like I say, no other sport, no basketball, no other, even the loss in basketball, you're not out the playoffs necessarily. Still, you know what I mean? Losses in other sports is not, a deal breaker, but in the fight game, unless you're a huge star, it's a deal breaker. Unless you're a huge star.
Yeah.
It's the only way it's not.
Yeah. And that's just all these casual fans out there. Yeah, you got to understand, like, it's all on that one person in this game, MMA or boxing. It's all on that one person. I mean, you can have a team, but once you get in there, it's just you.
Yeah, I mean, because think about it. Okay, you lost the fight. It's hard for you to get another fight. Your trainer, while you can't get a fight, he can go train somebody else. He can go work in another gym. I'm not saying that's a good practice, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
But he got to eat too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And some trainers are already known to have 5-6 fighters. So, I mean, going in, you might already know that. But a fighter got to think about that. I mean, he stand to lose the most in the loss. His team loses, but he stand the most from the pain to the financial aspect of it.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he do. Because like you said, yeah, a trainer, he might already have a stable. So you got to remember that he cares about you. His heart's there, but, it's still about putting food on his table, too.
Yeah. I mean, he got another check coming the next weekend. So it's, it's not really stopping his flow, but, a fighter got to mentally regroup. The trainer don't got to mentally regroup. It's, business. The fighter got to mentally regroup. A trainer is not gun shy. You know what I'm saying? The fighter might be gun shy. You feel me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. So there's just a lot of angles to the game, man. More and more you look at it, even with MMA and boxing together, they got a lot of the similar. They got a lot of similar things going on there, So it's something I appreciate in both sports, man. But this card, man, kind of brings us to this topic we got for y'all today, man. Just some things you brought up with the John Jones and Thiago Santos fight. The fact that John Jones, he's a highly skilled fighter. He's considered one of the greatest of all time. He was just in there with a guy like Santos who, like we said, skill level might not be on his level, but his youth and his heart and his hunger kind of balanced everything out that night. So it kind of made it a more of an even fight where John really had to dig deep, and it almost kind of exposed some holes in John,
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
When you kind of look at that fight, like I said, it kind of popped in my mind that this fight coming up next week between Manny Pacquiao and Keith Thurman, the more and more I look at it, it's kind of looking in that same similar situation, man. Because at first, first time I heard the fight was announced, I was kind of leaning towards Keith a little bit because I was like, Keith looks like he's the fresher guy, and just looking at Manny Pacquiao, his performance against Adrian Broner. But then there was parts of me looking at training with Manny Pacquiao, I leaned towards Manny again, and then just kind of looking back at this fight, it kind of makes it more of a 50-50 fight. And that's just something I wanted to talk about with you today, P. Like Manny Pacquiao and Keith Thurman, there's just a lot of angles to this, man. Just looking at the youth and the skill, like how is that all going to come into a factor in this fight? And going into this Saturday, man, like who are you leaning towards mostly now, man? As far as, is it still 50-50 in your eyes, or who are you looking at as the winner?
I mean, when I take emotion out of it, and you know what I'm saying, and just look at the facts for the facts, which is hard for a boxing fan sometimes. And we got our favorites, we got different reasons we lean different ways. Sometimes we don't even realize it, but like you just was speaking on how the fight game is just and when I say the fight game, I'm talking about the fight, any combat sports. It's just funny how you can kind of get old overnight. You know what I'm saying? When you hear that phrase a lot in the fight game, he got old overnight. And like I say, what kind of helped me kind of see that it was in the Jones Santos fight, is because like we say, John is being touted as the greatest of all time. That's what his goal is. He's looking at the greatest of all time, not a championship.
Mm-hmm.
But all these young hungry guys are just looking at becoming a champion. So even the sights are different, man. You know what I'm saying? So in my eyes, John Jones' psychology is, I'm pretty much light years ahead of the competition that's coming up. Yeah, I got to train, I got to fight, but they got a lot of catching up to do. But after watching Saturday night and looking at that, and that's in not just boxing. I mean, not just MMA, but boxing. A lot of fights, if you really look at it, how you're seeing guys who definitely is a better fighter, but they're fighting a young, hungry guy, and that kind of balanced out the fight because, like you say, the youth, the athleticism, the heart, the will, the hunger. You know what I mean? You got to factor all that stuff in to a guy who, like we say, might be peaking, might be over the hill, might not just be hungry anymore. You know what I mean? And I think that plays into it. But with this Manny Pacquiao and Keith Thurman, Manny Pacquiao, I know he has haters, but in my eyes, it's hard not to like Manny. For 20 years that he's been boxing, or however long. I mean, he's been a face-off smile. He's not done one thing to really make a person, in my opinion, not like him. So it's hard to really not like Manny. Keith Thurman on the other side, even though he's not like a bad guy, it's just some of the moves he made in the game kind of left people with a bad taste. I mean, even down to even getting this fight. You know what I mean? In a lot of people's eyes, I mean, even in my eyes, I see where people coming from who feel like this is how he even got the fight. His last fight with Lopez, it was a close, tough fight. It wasn't nothing to really propel you into a Manny fight, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like a Manny fight is a reward for the young fighters.
Really?
That's a reward for the younger fighters. You know what I mean? It's a possible chance to put that name. You putting the name on your resume, whether you win or lose. You still share the ring with a guy, a Hall of Famer, guaranteed, Hall of Famer. But it's definitely, a big deal for the younger fighters. So it's kind of a reward for them. So any of the young fighters would have took the fight, but they gave it to Keith or whatever. So I kind of, I'm just laying down the groundwork for how I came to this decision, man. But
oh yeah.
But then when you factor in, Manny is over the hill, not peaking, not at the top. He's over the hill. He's not hungry. He may need money, but he's not hungry. And like we talked about earlier, it's a difference between being hungry and needing money, in my opinion, in our opinion. That.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. What's your definitions between those two? I know you were telling me earlier off the mic. What's your definition between those?
I mean, in my opinion, the difference between being hungry and needing money is being hungry is never had money before it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Needing money is you had it, and you may not have used it wisely or whatever the case may be. So, Manny, he's fighting at what is he, 41, 42?
40.
He only 40?
Yeah.
Okay, he's 40.
Well, I want to say 41 now because they always just throw that age out that he's 40, but yeah, he's already pushing a little over 40.
Yeah, that's why I thought he was maybe 40, at least 41 or whatever. But which is old to be a fighter, and Manny, I mean, even though he still can do it, we can see he's not the Manny of old. And just looking at even the energy Keith Thurman is bringing, I mean, he's very confident. He looks like this fight is what he's been waiting for, and he's motivated, and he's really, putting in the work. So I would have to say, and I mean, as much as it would be good to see Manny, pull off the upset, I think Keith, this fight will be a fight that falls into that category where, Manny, Keith Thurman don't have the skill set of Manny. I mean, mind you, he's not
or experience
light years away from him. Yeah, he's not a terrible boxer or super far from Manny by no means. But you combine a young guy with all the attributes we just said, the youth, the hunger, the will, determination, everything, against Manny's just
deteriorating. Somebody who's starting to fall on the downside. They might catch him on that right time. But
it's kind of hard to go against Keith.
Yeah.
When you look at it like that, is what I'm trying to say. Pretty much.
I could definitely see that because for me, like, the reason I picked Manny at first, I always say, like, oh, Manny Pacquiao, he's been there, he's done that, he has that experience, in just one hand. I always kind of feel that way, like he's one of those guys like Floyd, like he can just dig out the bag and pull out whatever tricks he can against an average fighter. But Keith, he's not an average fighter. He's a decent boxer. I mean, he hasn't really been tested against another legend like this. This is his first big fight and his first pay-per-view. But for me, like, that hunger, does he have that hunger that he needs to really balance it out and overcome somebody like Pacquiao? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, if he does have that hunger that can kind of balance out with his skill, I feel like, yeah, he could beat Pacquiao. But to me, him just having that lack performance against Lopez, where he really had to dig deep against a guy like that, it makes me wonder, like, what's he going to use against somebody like Manny? What really makes him seem like he's fresh enough to beat Manny, even though Manny is older, Like,
that's true.
I'm just looking right now. Yeah, Manny, he turns 41 in December, so yeah, he's 40. But because think about it, Manny, like, is like one of the guys who come closest to Bernard Hopkins to be able to still fight on this level, really, hasn't he?
Yeah, and look a certain way.
A certain way.
Still ripped up. He's still in there moving and bouncing, you know what I mean? So definitely, yeah.
So I'm thinking, like, right now, if Manny can still bring the skill and the experience he has, he's still gonna have to bring like a new fire too. You know what I mean? And that's, to me, that's gonna be kind of tough because I don't think he really had to rediscover himself in the Adrian Broner fight. I think he just came like he always was. He came like he was Manny, and the old Manny was enough to beat Adrian Broner. But I think to beat Keith, he's going to have to kind of find that hunger again. Not just the need and the money. Because, like, I think Keith Thurman, he still has some hunger in him. Like I was telling you earlier, I feel like he's never been a multi-division world champion. He's not a first ballot for a Hall of Famer. You know what I mean? So he still wants all of that.
Of the mountain yet. Yeah, he definitely haven't been to the top of the mountain yet.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
And Manny, he's had all of that, but he's kind of in the need of money right now. You know what I mean? That's why he signed Al Heyman to get more money because, like we said, we don't know how what type of shape Top Rank left him in, what Bob Arum really did for him, what he did to him. So it's kind of like he's more in the mind state of money. So I'm feeling like going into this fight with Keith, he gonna have to find that hunger again to say, I wanna really, really add something to my legacy and, beat this guy. You know what I mean? Because like, I don't think he can just come in there just thinking this is a paycheck like the Adrian Broner fight.
Well, let me ask you this real quick, Ant. Do you think if Manny don't get the knockout, do you think he can get the decision over Keith Thurman?
I think he can. I think he can, but it's gonna be some hard work. But after going back and looking at that Jeff Horn fight, he's gonna have to go for a knockout because I felt he won the Jeff Horn fight, but that being in Australia, you kind of see who they played the favorite for there with Jeff Horn. It's still going to be hard. It's going to be hard, man, because like they actually say that Manny is the underdog in this fight. So going in that now to this fight, it's kind of a lot of people's eyes. Like for me now, it's 50-50, but they saying that Keith Thurman, his chances are looking good, so they might try to favor towards him more so even on the card. So it's going to be tough for Manny to try to win a decision, man.
That's my opinion. That I mean, we have seen Manny. I mean, with the world say been robbed a few times out there already.
Mm-hmm.
Keith Thurman, we've seen him rob people. You know what I mean, and some eyes out in the boxing world. So, in my opinion, because we still got to look at it from the business side too, man. I mean, Manny is done. You know what I'm saying? I mean, Keith could take this fight and run into the hills. I don't know what type of guarantees we got on that, but just looking at it from the business aspect, this would definitely be a good business move for Keith Thurman. He's a young, he can mix it up with these guys that's out here right now and really make it a more interesting fight. Manny could beat some of these guys, I believe, but he can't beat all of them. And it's like, what's the future in the welterweight division with Manny in the mix, really? You know what I mean? Because there ain't nothing but young lions out there. So that you factor that in with the decision too. And as much as we hate to say that has anything to do with it, because it's about scoring points, but it does.
It still do. Like, it's a business because they got to look at the longevity in their product. You know what I mean? It's still kind of like that, when you see two fighters in there, the old and the young, and it does go 12 rounds, they might say, well, if we give it to him, there's really no guarantee. If we give it to the older guy, there's really no guarantee that we're going to get, we're really going to get a good investment off of it. See, if we Keith gets it, the younger guy will say, oh, we can go with him because, hey, there's still more fights that can be made with him because he's got years on his career,
Because think about it, Ant. Think about it, dog. Everybody who is running or created combat sports ain't a combatant. So it's just a bunch of people got together with money and said, we love fighting, we can't fight, so let's find people who can fight and make money off them.
Mm-hmm.
Where it should have been people who, we fight, let's get together and make something with, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So from every aspect you look at it, I mean, Dana White is not a fighter. It ain't a promoter out now that, well, we got a few, Oscar De La Hoya. Yeah, we got a few now, Devin Haney. Now we do got a few more, but
the ground, at the time, the ground level was just all, like they say, old white men who never put on gloves before,
You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, that's just interesting to me that, the people that's running it ain't combatants at all. But the combatants are the key.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They're the key to it. So that's just another interesting sport. I mean, I guess it's probably like that with all sports. All these people went and found tall people who could dribble the ball because they couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So they make their own game of it, Because think about it, like even the judges, So everything down from the promoters and managers to the judges, or guys who never really laced up gloves before.
Just or possibly punks,
Yeah,
They very well could be chumps, but they love fighting and they got money to put this stuff together. You know what I'm saying? To be entertained. So saying that, I was kind of saying that to say that. So you got to realize there's people on the behind the scenes saying, "Yo, the show must go on."
mm-hmm.
If this guy don't want to fight, he pulled out this. Okay, we're gonna find. The game never gonna stop, man, because the people behind the scene, they not combatants. They never get injured in fights. They never had to retire. They never had to pull out a fight. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because
so the engine is gonna keep moving. The fighters are just kind of being like pawns in the game. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because
it's unfortunate, but that's the way it is. And I'm just saying this dawned on me. I'm not like saying this like I'm a scientist. This just dawned in my little brain and like struck me all on me like, dang, that is crazy that a group of people just got together and found people who could fight. You know what I'm saying? And decided to make money off of them, and that was 1,000 years ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it all came down to entertainment. Because if you want to go all the way back, you go back to the Mandingo fights where they slave masters just say, hey, I bet you my biggest slave could beat yours, so it goes back to that.
Same principle, dog. Same thing.
And think about it, the day
couldn't fight, went and found people who could fight.
Right. And think about it, the day that guy is show wear and tear and he might be missing an eye or he might be busted up, then they say, hey, then we got to get rid of him,
Gotta get rid of him. The show must go on. We got to keep this excitement going.
So we look at Manny right now. If he can't score a knockout, then they're going to try to do everything in their power to try to give it to Keith, So they got to try to look at every angle that we say, if Keith ain't getting dropped every round and Keith if Keith is still surviving, then we got to at least give him a majority decision or a draw or something to keep, this undefeated kid alive. Because right now, we looking at the way Manny's looking, he might not be able to be somebody we can invest in any much longer,
And then, especially when we look deeper at the Manny not being hungry but needing money. Now, I don't know how true this is, but they said that him and Amir Khan had something set up in November already. So, if that's true, even the thought of that being true just let you get inside Manny's head where he's at right now. Manny, I wouldn't hang around and turn into like a gatekeeper or just a name to put on resumes, because eventually that's what's guaranteed to happen, and that's another like dynamic where I say like I think the powers to be know Manny maybe got 1-2 more in him. You know what I'm saying? And that's not really good for business. You know what I'm saying? So back to like what we were saying about the decision. I mean, Manny had to be so dominant over Keith Thurman, a guy who can box, got good footwork, who can move. Decent defense. You know what I mean? I don't see that. I don't see him being that dominant. That's Keith get cut and they had to start something crazy. You know what I mean? But as far as him putting on a crazy dominant performance, like you say, he had to drop him in every round and just do something where, we don't have no choice but to give it to Manny. But if it's any thought of it being, close or something, I really see, Keith pulling it out. I mean, because, that last fight or a few fights he had, people could have really felt like, it could have went the other way. You know what I'm saying? And
right.
Been okay with that, but at that time Keith was the machine. He was out there. He was being vocal, like you said. He wanted to unify it. He was talking the good stuff, so people was kind of, you know what I mean.
And think about it like this too. Like Manny would have to do a performance to guarantee him to win. Almost like, since he's the underdog now, he would have to do it like J-Rock did against Jared Hurd. You know what I mean? Because I still feel like that fight went 12 rounds, but if there was any way that they could have, they would have gave the decision to Jared Hurd. I'm just saying, like if you want to think of politics, I think like if there would have been any couple of rounds in between where J-Rock had slipped, then they probably would have tried to make it a draw, or they would have gave the fight to Jarrett Hurd, just because of politics. But he had to make it an open shut fight where he was dominant every round. And I feel like that's kind of where Pacquiao is now. That's where Pacquiao is now as far as like what he needs to do. That's why I say he got to find like that new flame where he got to really go in there and fight hungry, not just come in there and put on a show. Because if he come in there if he just come in there to put on a show, Keith Thurman gonna be coming in there to do both, put on a show and fight.
And I mean, at this stage, at Manny's age, what do you think is the capstone on what he trying to do right now, man? I mean, he in the Hall of Fame already, so it has to be because it's money. It ain't the championships, it ain't the belts. He eight-time division champ. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because everybody he's going to challenge now, they don't hold nothing to the guys he already beat. You know what I mean?
Nothing. And then when you factor that
in,
I just thought about that too. Man, he fought everybody. This dude. He fought dudes I done forgot he fought. He fought everybody
2 and 3 times.
So when people say, people fought everybody, Manny is one of those guys who really fought everybody, different generations, you know what I'm saying? Back to the damn Eric Morales, Barrera days, up till now. Up till now, so where's a guy like that at psychologically? What could they do? What could they wave over him to motivate him enough to say, I want to be away from my family, I don't want to do. I don't think it's nothing they can waive because as an older person that you just really get to the point where a lot of stuff's not that important no more. Especially you that had it. I'm talking from a person who ain't never had it and you just get over it after a while. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So a person who been there, it ain't nothing they can really dangle. He done the champion walk 1,000 times. The after party, the hometown parade, all of that, the late night talk shows. What more can he really do in the game? So it's like at this point, to be fighting at 41, about to be 41, it's like it could only be a few things. And the difference between Bernard Hopkins is because he was kind of chasing greatness, you know what I'm saying? And he had to fight to secure his name in the books the way he wanted to secure.
Yeah, because he wasn't no star.
In there, with the middleweight, but he wanted more than that, and he wanted them paydays too. It took him longer to get them turn into a star and command those type of paydays. It's not the same thing for Manny. Manny been at the top. The top. Even when Bernard was at the top, it wasn't the top like Manny. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
like you said, like with him, he wasn't no star, so he had to keep kind of fighting to get more paydays where you already knew, like with Manny, a couple of paydays ago, maybe a couple of years ago, or 4 or 5 years ago, you've been secured. You know what I mean? Like your one payday was probably as big as like 5 of B-Hop's. You know what I mean? So I think about it like that too. Like I kind of liken them together now just because he's doing things, in that age range where B-Hop was. But like when B-Hop was doing it, B-Hop was kind of a good test too for the guys, you know what I mean, to see where they were. Because if B-Hop was still there, y'all retire him. But none of the guys could do it, so he kept going. You knew he was going to keep going. Whereas with Manny, if he was to beat Keith Thurman right now, there's still Bud out there. There's still Spence out there, you know what I mean? And just the kind of like performance he's been putting on, it kind of makes you say, I don't know if he could beat a guy like Spence or Bud right now. But when you saw Hopkins, just that different type of alien, like he calls himself, whenever he beat Tarver, he went on to beat other guys like Tavoris Cloud and, give Chad Dawson a good fight. He lost that fight, but he stayed in the light heavyweight division that's still like a force. You know what I mean? Like, whereas Manny, I can't really see him as a force anymore just because we've seen him do these many things against other guys, and now you're in this other generation with these other young lions that need to be mixing up. And it kind of, I don't want to put his size into it, but now you're talking about big young, stronger guys, as you start to kind of, like we said earlier, you start to kind of fall just
and
into the skill
diminish.
category, yeah, and diminish.
And to that, another thing about Bernard Hopkins and Manny Pacquiao is like in Bernard Hopkins' old age, he crafted a style that could give like anybody problems. Like he got to be known as like the young person exposer. Manny just doing the same thing. You know what I'm saying? That he's always kind of done. You know, B Hop was more technical and tactical with the fights he picked and the way he fought. You know, he fought people. Like Manny is not like breaking people down psychologically. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? It's just he going in there doing what he's always done. You know, smiling. He's not a mean guy. You know, B Hop was still getting in people's head, making young guys question themselves. You know what I'm saying? All kinds of stuff that B Hop was doing. It was like a different ride. That's all I'm trying to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely is. Yeah, I definitely understand that. Yeah, because like, and that's what kind of puts B Hop in his own category because of that style, that type of mental fighter he is. Whereas Manny, he's very athletic, and he wasn't always calling the shots for himself throughout his career. It's kind of hard to see him crafting something like that now going into a fight. That's why I say, like, going back to the, finding that hunger, man, it's going to be hard because part of beating somebody like Keith Thurman and beating these young guys is, part of that hunger is actually crafting that style and adapting, I mean, just like animals do, the hunt, is whenever an animal has to change, they change environments, they start to adapt to it so they can hunt or survive.
And like, I mean, just think about this scenario. Could you imagine Manny Pacquiao? He's on the referee's blind side and he taking shots so the referee can you imagine him doing that? No, you can't, man. That's B Hop.
That's B Hop,
You know
right?
That's that Philly street boxing wisdom. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That wouldn't even fit Manny. You'd be like, oh, Manny dirty. No, B Hop. You don't say that with B Hop. You know what I mean? You like look at B Hop doing that shit. Look at him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's you call it craftiness with B Hop. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that's another thing too. That's fascinating too, right there. Character in boxing kind of judges a fighter, and it takes him a long way. You know what I mean? Like different types of character in there can already make you say, like, I know what to expect. Like you see Manny in there, like they might actually take points from Manny for doing something like that.
For doing something crazy. You remember when he hit? Who was it? I forget the African guy.
Claudia with the two gloves, right?
Yeah, that was like the worst thing I ever kind of see him do, and they made a big deal. Oh, Manny, he hits him with the double fisted. You know what I mean? So, like you say, character, and B Hop, they look down on B Hop, so nothing he did was really a shocker. You know what I'm saying? But Manny, who been smiling, this nice guy, he couldn't do nothing like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right, because like whenever B Hop would do it, I remember one time Lennox Lewis, he was like, yeah, see, that's really good technical old school boxing you can't teach. He's over there.
Exactly.
He's over there on this one side where the ref can't see him, and he's banging his hip. He's he's like, he finds that fascinating because he knows that's what this Philly street fighter does, But when you see like fast hands and, the guy that's always putting on the in and out show, athletic, all of a sudden do this double fisted Clardy, it was like, oh, that was like one of the worst things we seen,
Right.
So yeah, man, like I said, like just looking at that stuff like that, character and being able to kind of adapt, that's very, very important as far as, being a fighter, man. And I think part of that is having that hunger, man. And right now it's really hard to see Manny with that hunger,
Yeah, I mean, any way you look at it, man, from him being the older man, from him already achieving, what no other fighter has. I think he only 8-time world champion, right?
Yeah, only one.
So it's just like, what more could you desire for? His family is secure, he's in the politics. He got something to do after boxing. It got to be about the money, you know what I'm saying? The fighting is the quickest grab bag for a guy like Manny right now because he still can command a nice ticket for anybody he get in the ring with. You know what I'm saying? Especially if there's any truth to this, him setting up Amir Khan. So it's like that's happening win, lose, or draw.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is not about any contention. This is just a fight that just be happening. You know what I mean? Because it's a good payday for both guys. You know, so that I mean that just let me see where Manny head is at with all this stuff too, man. You know what I'm saying? I mean, everything the other welterweights are doing is strategic to get it to the top of the division.
Mm-hmm.
If there's any truth to this, you know, fight with Amir Khan, then Manny ain't worried about the top of the division, man. You know what I'm saying? I don't think he is anyway.
Right.
Whether this fight is true or not. I mean, like I said, what does him at the top of the welterweight division now mean compared to what he's done?
Nothing really, because you think about it, like I said, like you're gonna be amongst guys or guys we already could have said, oh, we knew you would have beat them anyway because they're not as good as the guys you beat the generation before that, the era before that. You know what I mean? So you look at it now, he's probably doing his strategic battle. You know, I mean, he's doing his strategic, looking at it in a financial way. Because look, Keith Thurman, he's like, out of all these guys between Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence, Keith Thurman is the one that's the loudest. He kind of sells tickets. You know what I mean? So after I beat the other loudest guy, Adrian Broner, I'm gonna take Keith Thurman next. You know what I mean? So he's a guy that's gonna bring in a big crowd. He's the other guy that's gonna be considered a favorite. So I could take him on. You know, and then after that, like you said, win or lose, I got another guaranteed fight over here against another guy with a big UK following, Amir Khan. So that's kind of set up. Because why really would he go beat somebody like Keith Thurman, and then after that, put yourself back in the lion's den again with these other guys that ain't really guaranteed big money, you know?
I mean, think about the sound of this, Amir Khan and Manny Pacquiao at Wembley Stadium.
Oh, yeah.
It just sounds good. It just sounds good, You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's a fight that's definitely on paper is way past his time, you know, skills don't really match up. It's still interesting, and something like that just sound good. I don't know if Manny ever fought at Wembley, but you know, I mean, I know that would just be a huge fight still today. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. It's still almost like in music, like, you know, musicians or artists already past their prime. It's still like, hey, Michael Jackson was around. He was perform over there with somebody else, you know, Celine Dion or whatever, you know, people that already have a guaranteed fan base to bring in big numbers, you know.
It's guaranteed. That's money in the bank.
Yeah. But before we do wrap it up, man, because I know we're gonna talk about it again next week. What about Keith Thurman, man? Like, how deep is his hunger, man? Do you really feel like he got that hunger right now?
And now, Keith got me on a roller coaster. I was with him at first, and then I wasn't with him. Then he started winning me back. Now I'm on the fence with him. It's honestly hard for me to read Keith Thurman with what's inside his head, you know. But if he, I mean, whatever, win, lose, or draw this fight, he's still getting a nice payday. And if he walked away after this, that wouldn't surprise me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not saying that's what I want. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen. But I do got to question his, I won't say heart, but like, what is he really trying to get out of the game? His legacy in the game, you know what I mean? We seen him change up his tune a few different times, and you know, he went and got married, and you know, more power to him, absolutely. But I mean, a lot of people say that did something to him. I don't know, you know what I mean? It's a lot of fighters that's married that didn't do nothing to him. I don't see how that would do something to you.
Maybe it was the flute.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And like I say, I mean, he's a very intellectual type of guy. I see him playing the piano, he plays the flute, he's in all this philosophy stuff. I mean, I gotta wonder, you know, question how much fight is in him. Just because a guy can fight don't mean that he's a fighter.
Yeah. Some guys just fight if they have to, you know, they don't.
I mean, like, if you talk to most fighters, fighters that they say they hate fighting. They just good at it.
Yeah, they just
Hate
good.
it. They say, yo, I hate it. Yo, I get nightmare. I got butterflies, but I, I'm happen to be good at it. It's only a few fighters who like to get punched in the face. You know what I mean? And most of them are super exciting fighters. But
Right.
for the most part, it's like a lot of people. I mean, they nervous before the fight. There's all kinds of stuff that they be saying that like be shocking me. Like, damn, wow. But we'll see, man. Like I said, it's still a lot of questions for me personally with Keith Thurman. But I'm just saying that on the record. If he did take this fight and walk away, that wouldn't really surprise me because after this fight, it's hitter time. It's nothing but hitters left.
Exactly.
I mean, you fought Sean Porter, so we don't really want to see that again. I mean, you pretty gonna be backed into Earl Spence or a Terrence Crawford corner, if you ask me. I mean, what other fights people want? What would we
That's
accept
it.
from him? Yeah, what would we accept from him after
Nothing.
a win?
I ain't.
Manny Pacquiao. You pretty much had 2 turn-up fights. You said you wanted to come back, get a couple fights under your belt. You had Lopez, and then you had a former, a legend in the game. So you should be turned up. So, I mean, like I say, I don't know if he's going to be willing to do something like that after a win over Manny. I would love to see some of that stuff, but not if his heart not in it. Not if it's not 100% Keith Thurman. I don't want to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, man. Like, for me, yeah, like I'll say this before we wrap it up, too, is like, his hunger, man, like I told you when I first seen him hit the scene, I was like, this dude gonna be the next big thing. He talking undisputed. He talking about fighting everybody. Then all of a sudden, he does, he makes a statement by beating Sean Porter and Danny Garcia, but then the 2-year layoff, and it just kind of seemed like all of that kind of went out the door for a while, and it just kind of seemed like everybody says, his energy changes when you bring up the name Errol Spence for some reason, And he keeps saying that the fight will happen in 2020, but for me, that's still plenty of time for you to say, I might not feel like boxing anymore, That might make me say, oh, this might be, let me take this Manny fight just in case anything happened, I'm secured, Like if I don't feel like fighting no more, I still got a big payday to ride out with,
Right.
That's...
And then, think too, in his mind, he might think that he injury prone. He might know that, you know what I mean? It's a lot of things that could be going on.
Yeah, because,
behind the scene to say, yo, I need to get paid and get up out of here.
Yeah, because if you look, like, one of his recent interviews, he was saying, like, the hardest he's been hit was by Danny Garcia, and it was on that elbow that he had to have surgery on. So, like, yeah, he is counting the injuries now. He is looking at that as a factor too, because he said when he got hit on those elbows by Danny Garcia, that's what did the damage, So, he is a guy that might want to take a look at how durable he is now, as a fighter. Can he take hits like he used to? So I think when you look at that, when he looks at those injuries, he's looking at being married now. And like you said, like, the guy's got he's got a personality, he knows boxing, so he could always be a commentator off top. So there could be many openings for him. So he's just seeing that now. He's seeing that landscape like, oh, I ain't got to take a punch in the face, to get a big check, So he can look at all that.
Right. And like I said, we see he's a guy too with many different interests. You know what I'm saying? And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that's all right.
All the stuff that we're seeing, we don't know where boxing ranks with some of this stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We don't know if boxing is more than the music, or the music could be more than the boxing. We don't know. The boxing could have just been the first thing that took off.
Hey,
you know what I mean?
And we never know. He could be making flute instrumental albums on the low. So you know what I mean? So
it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Surprise me. Because he's the artistic type of person, it seems like. You know what I mean? So it wouldn't surprise me. Is it going to be good? Who knows? But it wouldn't be the first time a boxer steps into the music realm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely, man. So I just, going into this fight, I just kind of want the best choice to be made. You know what I mean? Like, And it's really hard to say what that is. You know, it's really hard to say, like, if Manny wins, will Manny be able to, you know, secure another welterweight supremacy? Or if Keith win, will he go on to do it? You know what I mean? Like, because both guys right now, they really both looking at money with this fight. You know, every time Keith Thurman talk, he's like, I'm the A side. I do big numbers, numbers this, numbers that, tickets this. So this is my first pay-per-view, you know, and all of this. This is kind of what he's talking about. He's not really talking about once I beat Manny, it's on to Errol and Terrence, you know.
Right.
He never
Right.
mentions any other names outside of this fight. So it's kind of
little signs like that, man.
yeah, little signs like that. Yeah.
Little signs like that. He not like, all right, I'm get it. First is Manny, and then it's this. Everybody else jumping 2 and 3 fights ahead. And that's the new trend in boxing now.
Mm-hmm.
Signing contracts for, you know what I mean? It's the new trend. I don't know when that popped up, but it's the new trend. But you don't hear him talking that talk.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't hear him on that. No, he like, let me taking this one fight at a time. So I'm like, okay, well, for us, I think it's just safe for us to kind of think of this fight as just like the Errol Spence and Mikey Garcia fight, where it's just kind of an entertainment fight. I think it's more safe for us like that. After it happens, we ain't accepting nothing less than a Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford fight for me. Or you know, Errol Spence, Sean Porter winner, because you know they fight. So
yeah, I agree, man, and I agree too. And I mean, looking at everything in this totality. I say it's a 50-50. It balances out to pretty much a 50-50 fight, but it's all going to come down to fight night and who wants it more, who brings it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Skill-wise on paper, yeah, it's 50-50. You know, you factor in everything, but come fight night, I mean, Manny, both of them have the skills to beat each other.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a matter of who going, you know, make it happen that night. But that's all I got at.
All right. Well, yeah, man. Well, like I said, we'll probably jump on some more talk about it next week, you know, with some other things. But nothing else you had to say in final thoughts, P? Before we close this one out, you can give everybody social media where they can follow you, P.
Yeah, man. That's pretty much it. But, you know, y'all can catch me at Loud Pack Boxing on IG. You can catch me at p.barnhill on Instagram. And, yeah, and we just, you know, we still at it, man. You know, people, they probably, you know, been through it. We was going to stop or whatever. But, yeah, we still at it, man. So, just keep listening if you're listening. And if you're listening, tell a friend, subscribe, all that new internet terminology people be using.
Yeah.
All of that.
Yeah.
All of that. You know what I'm saying? But, yeah, that's it for me, Ant.
All right. Well, y'all can follow me on Instagram at ComboBreaker99 and All Boxing Everything. And you can follow us both on The Jab Effect on Instagram. You can follow us on The Jab Effect on Twitter and on Facebook. You know, shout out to the Facebook followers. You know, it's been growing, man. It's like almost going on to 4,000 pretty soon, man.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, so just
it out slowly but surely.
yeah, and just you know, just so y'all know, as long as that keep growing, we gonna keep growing. You know, we gonna keep making some big things, big changes coming. So make sure y'all subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Spotify. Just type in the Jab Podcast because we the only ones come up. We the only ones our own lane, man.
Yeah, you know it.
But yeah, man, before we bounce, I'm Combo Breaker 99.
It's your boy Boxing P.
And we out, y'all. Peace.